Okay. Okay, now I can start. Just restart my watch here. All right, let's go. So, happy December 2nd. I hope everybody had a great and safe and happy Thanksgiving. I'm proud of myself for actually behaving myself and not eating too much, but then I think about all the food that I did not eat, and it's just, it's my mental dilemma. But anyway, welcome back, December. Let's get through 22 with a bang. Welcome to MVP Office Hours. I am Dale Ziegler, and with me as usual, Squire Kirshner, Joy Shutters Helbing, say hello. Oh, and Taco in the background, maybe in real life or not, but
no. It's a image. It's a background. I would love to get my virtual background and actual video image of the backyard like that, but the Taco Cam captured that yesterday. So
if we have dead air, I have a funny story about video backgrounds I can share later. But you can follow any of us on the social medias. It's not just Twitter anymore, but you can get me on LinkedIn. You can get Joy and Squire and Office Hours as a whole on Twitter at those handles. You can reach us at mvpofficehoursus@gmail.com, but you will be greeted with an out-of-office reply that says, hey, go find us in the success community or the Trailblazer community or whatever we're calling it these days. I honestly lose track because the domain still says success, so I don't know. But post your question out there because everybody in the group can see it. If it's in email, only the three of us can see it. The group, everybody can see it. You might even be able to get your question answered before the next meeting, and all the good things. We're obviously more than happy to answer those questions here, but if you need an answer sooner, jump on there. We do normally meet on the first and third Friday of the month, and we're actually in a good cadence on that. We had several months where we weren't, so we are in our normal groove. Our next call will be the last call of the year on 12/16. So go ahead and get registered for that. And we would love to see you on the next call. And you can go to any of these links to find access to the past recordings. And if you do put anything out on the socials, just please use one of our favorite hashtags here. Welcome to all current and future MVPs, because everyone's an MVP. If you're here to help, if you're here to ask, if you're here to do anything, you are an MVP. Everyone is encouraged to participate as much or as little. We also understand if it's your first call and you're just trying to see what's going on, get the groove, listen in, we're totally cool with that, but don't be shy about speaking up if you have something to say. We have the Zoom chat for posting links and other resources, as well as if you have a question, get in line there or use the hand raised reaction or whatever it's called, whatever the Zooms call it. Hi, Taco. But yeah, get in line and we'll get your question going if we have time within the hour. We can do screen sharing because it's Zoom, but we are recording. So first things first, if you cannot be recorded, if you're not comfortable being recorded, please jump off. We'll have the recording shared to our YouTube channel sometime this weekend. I usually have it before end of business day Friday, but try to have it by the end of the weekend and you can catch everything there, as well as the deck, which will include any links or anything. We also say with screen sharing, please do not share your production org. Don't share real data. You can share sandboxes, you can share dev orgs, share Trailhead Playground, share whatever, but just because this is being recorded, the last thing we want is for your company's data, or if you're a consultant, any of your clients' data, anything like that to be recorded. So that's the absolute last possible option. And obviously it's Friday afternoon. Nobody really wants to be super serious and stuffy. We're just trying to have fun. We're trying to help each other, but let's keep it professional. We understand there may be some context about the current company landscape that kind of helps inform how your org got to it is, but let's just keep it professional. Let's keep it above board. We don't want anybody getting in trouble over our call here because we're just trying to help people. So upcoming events in the Dreamin' Space, Cactus Force in Phoenix, as well as Texas Dreamin' in Austin. Texas Dreamin's always a big one. I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, including the Salesforce events. So you can go out and find information on those. In terms of Salesforce events, next week, World Tour in New York City. Trailblazer DX is right there, start of spring in March. And then, of course, Dreamforce in September. So Salesforce is really good about rolling out information of how to register and all of that as soon as they are able. So keep your peepers peeped on that. And then for local groups, definitely check out those links in the lower right to find your local group. I'm here in Kansas City, former user group leader. Squire's up in Milwaukee, Joy's in Chicago, both leading groups. I know we have other UGLs here on the call as well that love facilitating the space to just meet and network and commiserate in person. So if you haven't found a local group, go check out the featured groups section, as well as trailblazercommunitygroups.com.
Really quick, Dale, before you leave the screen, I can't tell if there really isn't anything between January and May in the Dreamin' space, or if the site's just not up to date. So if anybody's aware of something that's sliding into the first quarter that we're not publicizing, please let us know or post it in the success so we can include it, because I know sometimes that can be a challenge on the trailhead side to have them all show up.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, very good call out. We're doing the Google searches as much and looking at the site as much as we can, but we know this is a very connected network. So if y'all know of links that Salesforce doesn't and we don't know the path to get to them, please let us know. We'll put it in. And so then circling back, just one last thing, the group in the success community, it is a public group. We would love it if you would join to help out, but MVP Office Hours US is where you can post your questions and everything in between. We did not have any questions come up in the last couple of weeks. The biggest thing that got posted is that Salesforce MVP nominations is still open until Sunday. So if you haven't done that yet and you know someone who really deserves to be an MVP, please go out and nominate before the end of the weekend. All right, now I'm gonna shut up, and we have a question right off the top from Allison of best de-duping tool. So Allison, you want to give us a little bit more color around any of it?
Sure. I'm Allison. I work for a nonprofit based out of Boston, and I am in charge of data integrity, and so we have a mess, and I'm trying to clean it up. And we are looking at insights through Salesforce. We are also looking at Apsona for deduping and multi-step reporting. So I kind of wanted your MVP takes on both of those tools.
Stuart, why don't you jump in here? You had a lot of history and a lot of good comments. So you want to summarize that or go into any more detail there?
Yeah, sure. Well, and take my comments with a little bit of salt, because I have some I have some cynicism you'll hear, and some bitterness you'll hear in my history.
Hold on. Do I need to stop recording before you get into the cynicism, or are we just going to go straight to the happy? Because
no,
this is going on the internet.
No. I was a user of demand tools for a long time, and I loved that tool. It was a great tool to use for exactly the things that you're looking at, for analyzing data, deduping, but we used it for also a few other things. And it was just a really good data tool. Like, I became really in love with our Salesforce data through that tool. And then, as Barb mentioned in the chat, a company called Validity bought them and changed their business practices a little bit. And personally, for me, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, it didn't align with my own personal goals or my thoughts about how the community should be run or how my business should be run. And so we looked for another product. And the product we looked at was Apsona. Apsona worked for our organization very well. Their service was impeccable.
You're speaking as a nonprofit, right?
As a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yep. I was a nonprofit, at a public media group, and we had some things that they could not do. And they were actually kind of difficult things that even Salesforce said, yeah, that's really kind of hard to do. But they committed to us that if we would stick with them, that they would work with us to make sure that those things could happen. They're not perfect, but they did work with us to make sure that we could get those kind of, and the things we were looking at were some really deep level reports, and they helped us with that. So I'm totally satisfied with how AppSona product worked, how they trained us, and how they supported us. Really good product.
And is that an app exchange package, or how do you get connected with them? And I'm asking as a naive person here. I'm not teeing you up. It's how do you get connected to them?
I just went to their website, to be honest.
Sure.
Most of the connection I did with them was via email. But they might have a App Exchange page, but I did it all through their website.
Gotcha. Oh, Jack shared a link. Thank you, sir. Nice. Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Just
on the ball.
I would say one note on the AppSona, the De-dupe and match is an add-on, but I still think it's very, very fairly priced. It's not crazy expensive, but it acts and works so similar to demand tools. It's not quite as extensive as demand tools matching can be, but it worked pretty well.
And then does anybody know anything about the AppSona multi-step reporting tool? Because that's what I think we're focused on. And then we're looking at the insights tool through Salesforce for the deduping.
So I'm going to jump in. Excuse me. I don't think Insights does deduping. I think they do change of address.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's what we're looking at them for, is for their NCOA capabilities. And yeah, sorry.
Okay, just making sure that was clarified.
Yeah.
I have not personally been used multi-step reporting much, but I know there are people who swear by it, and AppSona's customer support is fantastic, and they will make sure you learn how to use it and can help you build things. So I love AppSona. They are wonderful, especially to nonprofits. I mean, they have been incredible supporters of the nonprofit community.
Yeah, and I met Justin at multiple events in the last 6 months. So yeah, I'm an AppSona fan, and I'm a Justin fan. So yeah, I'm sold on AppSona. I'm just trying to figure out the best tool for NCOA and deduping.
Yeah, we did use multi-step reports, and I know we used it because we had specific related objects that we could not get to via standard reports, and we had some filters that we could build, but it was just too difficult, and so we used AppSona reporting for the related objects and the filtering. I can't really get into details with you because that was years ago, way before my brain left my body. So to give you details about how exactly that worked, I don't know. But I do remember it was really a helpful tool for us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Um,
There was one thing that we left out of announcements, and that was the call. That was the call for presenters at TDX.
Oh, good call.
So I'll drop the link in the chat. But I wanted to throw that out there because I think it's December 12th is the cutoff, and so we won't talk to y'all before the cutoff.
Oh, good call. Good catch. Thank you.
Sorry to totally interrupt whatever next thought was coming out of someone's brain. Do we have another question?
yeah, we were going to argue with Daniel about whether or not you should have one flexi page or not.
Oh, yeah.
I just like put a rock on the mute button.
I think it depends. I think it depends. Like, I don't know. I think it depends. Or the yarn.
So Daniel, do you want to go into more detail than what you typed and have some conversation about where you're headed?
Sure. I found out I didn't know what I was talking about, or didn't know how big the job was going to be. The way it's presented from Salesforce, it looks like this is a brilliant answer. Get rid of all of your page layouts. Have one one page layout to rule them all, as you said. I got a kick out of that. And this way, you filter the fields on the dynamic page layout. That makes sense to me until you layer in record types. And now that just blew it out. It just blew some of my logic right out the window. Because now this record type had a page layout that was, there's another layer of filtering that I had to go into. And then when I found out some of my profiles didn't have access to that record type, it's like, oh boy, this isn't easier as it looks. So it does take a lot more research than I thought. I did roll out dynamic page layout on the account, and it's working, but it's still dependent on the page layouts that are there. So I haven't got rid of anything. I've just transferred to dynamic page layouts that look at these page layouts. So what's changed is my question. So what I thought this would be a benefit, and the benefit would be to get rid of the page layouts, but I'm still tied to them.
Yeah, I don't think that I've ever heard anyone say that dynamic forms allows you to get rid of page layouts. It just gives you more flexibility, but I'm open to conversation with anybody's heard differently.
So this is where you want me to mute. But with any kind of enhancement that Salesforce gives you like this, I will always challenge you to evaluate why and how you got to what you're trying to potentially replace with that enhancement. Yes, you may have multiple page layouts per object, per record type, whatever. And yes, dynamic page layouts are coming out. Is dynamic page layouts the solve, or is it time to go back and ask the question, how did I end up with multiple page layouts to begin with? Do I have some technical debt? Do I have some processes that have died? Do I have some processes that have expanded? Just because Salesforce gives you new tools and toys to play with doesn't mean that's necessarily the right answer. It's time to go back and refactor just to be on the safe side, because that new tool, that new toy might not be your answer just because it's shiny.
So it also, I'll add on to that and say it also depends on your organization's architectural process. So if your DevOps cycle says that, let's say you have a group that's developing service products and sales products and distribution products, if they can all use that same flexi page, that's fine, but I can see problems there. It might be better that they're all developing to their own set of pages to the account or the contact or whatever. And then as they're going through the pipeline and releasing their code to production, they're not stumbling over each other. Not that they would, because you have a very good CI/CD development process and no one's, running into problems. But the answer is always going to be, it depends on, how mature is your process? Is your architecture set up so that you're ready for these dynamic page layouts and you're ready to abandon everything else? So I'm not sure that, like, for my organization, we're not ready to flip that switch, because we have to look at all the use cases and say, do we just go with the low hanging fruit and say, yep, for these if then filters, we'll turn it on, but not for everything.
And not only that at the architectural level, but considering things down at the nitty gritty individual screw level, like page layouts having fields. Do some of the, I don't want to say audiences, because then that explicitly implies Experience Cloud, blah, blah, blah. But the viewers, the consumers of those pages, do they need field level security to the fields that are on those pages? But because some either do or don't need read or edit, like, is that what has splintered you into multiple pages or requires dynamic pages or whatever? Like, every thing in your org can always be and should always be re-scrutinized to avoid creating additional things. Just because the field's on the page doesn't mean all your consumers are going to see it. If they don't have field level security, they're not going to see it. So can you drop all your fields on a page and the users who have the appropriate field level security are going to see it where and when they need to see it? Yep. Great. You may be living on one classic page layout that rules them all. Nothing dynamic, nothing anything else. You may be able to get away with that for all you know. So never underappreciate those elements when these new things come out.
That doesn't mean the new things are bad. I
No, I'm
actually
not
quite
saying that they're
enjoy
bad.
dynamic page layouts.
I'm not saying they're bad, but when you look at the evolutionary cycle of Salesforce, everything all the new things continue to get evolved upon, which then gets you, if you become dependent on that new thing and they evolve it, you become even more dependent and even more dependent. And if you don't fully scrutinize, you may not realize that you're actually not using some core functionality. You're actually getting further and further into customization, which is the same trap of development. The deeper and deeper you get into code, the deeper and deeper dependent you are on it. So just always be mindful of, what do I actually need? What am I trying to accomplish with XYZ thing?
Yeah, your code just moves from, or your configuration just moves from whatever it was before now into the page or the form, as Michael's saying. It's not a page, it's a form. But yeah, but now you've just got all this complicated logic sitting in here instead of over wherever it was before.
Right. I mean, congratulations. You bought a new big house in a nice new neighborhood. Well, what are you going to do with that nice new big house? Go buy more stuff. Okay, well, that stuff's got to go somewhere. And now your car is parked out on the street instead of in the garage because I got this new thing. So let's put stuff in it. Like, hold on. What do you need?
Yeah. Well, and I think too that, I mean, this is a great example of something we talk about a lot, which is there's no one answer. There's a good answer, a right answer, and that answer has to be pulled apart a little bit too. So, you know, if I knew nothing about what you were doing, Daniel, and if I was like, oh, you have a single app with a single persona and they only do one thing, so maybe it's easier for you to maintain a single flexi page.
Mm-hmm.
But then I start to ask myself, well, you know what? Is that scalable? Is that sustainable? Are you looking at things like page load times and form factors? And, you know, you start to ask yourself different questions. And so while it might be, yeah, really, I mean, like, let's talk about like that whole, like the model that used to be like one process builder per object, right? Like that was just a good guideline. It was never really the rule. It was a way to make you ask yourself, if I do that, I get these benefits, but what are also the risks? You don't want to paint yourself in a corner. It might be easier to manage as an admin one page layout, but you might not be able to scale it over time. You might want to have 10 different flexi pages because you have way more customization, but now you have the offset of what does it take to, like, that tribal knowledge? Am I documented well? Am I, like, it all has to be evaluated end to end to really make the right decision. Because like this is a great example of yes and, yes or, yes but. So
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest concern about anything that sounds like you should just do this is that it should be ellipses at the end of that sentence every time. Like even we should move everything to flow. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, what if you can't? What if you shouldn't? What if there's a reason not to? There is no, if there were only one way to do it, they'd only give you one way to do it. They'd say layouts need to go away. You're using one flexi page from here now. That's not the model. So
Right.
ask hard questions of yourself. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
That's all right. So I am totally a dynamic form skeptic. I have not actually implemented it anywhere, and I love the related record hack to move fields off the page layout and onto tabs or whatever. But I will note there is one thing that dynamic forms can do pretty much better than any other solution out there, which is you can have a page layout, or a page layout's maybe the wrong word, a set of fields that are displayed on new record that is different from once that record is finished, which, people make flows to change record types or this, that, and the other thing. But dynamic forms does have that ability, which, I'm looking forward to using that someday, but I'm still a skeptic.
And that's a great point. And please hear me when I say I have nothing against dynamic forms. It's just because something is new and shiny doesn't mean it's necessarily the right answer. So I'm with everybody in this conversation. I'm not poo-pooing the new stuff. Like, it's a great conversation that my wife and I had last night. Our doorbell is kind of whatever. So she tasked me with researching Ring doorbells because we've never done that yet. So I looked it up. We live at the end of a cul-de-sac, a very quiet cul-de-sac, at like the extreme corner of the KC Metro. We haven't had any packages stolen. We don't have any criminal activity. So is it worth the subscription to video record? And oh, by the way, you can't get it to ring through your house. You have to do it through an Alexa device. Our kids might not fully grasp what all that is. So is it worth upgrading to the new modern tool when the doorbell is all we need? Someone's at the door, they hit the button, we hear it, we answer the door. Same thing with dynamic forms versus page layouts versus whatever. There's benefits, but mails come with a cost, like a literal cost. So,
Dale, I was so ready for you to tell me about your dinner time conversation about dynamic forms. It was like, wait a second.
And to go on with the scrutinization, I totally get it. We actually have a client who they want this field editable, and it's a custom object, but on the page layout, it's marked required only. Okay. So I worked with someone who, she's not here with me now, but she would say, here's solution one. We can just uncheck the field, but then everyone else can edit. Here's the pros and here's the cons. Here's option two. And I was asking a junior admin today, what would you select as an option? A whole new page layout. That seems like a lot for one field. So maybe dynamic, and then it's read only on for some people and not read only on the other. But it was funny. It was like 4 different options. Here's the pros of each and here's the cons of each, and then letting the client decide.
yeah, seriously, pro con, like that is the simplest but very powerful way to try to answer the question. What do I get? What do I
That
lose?
is a skill set that not everybody has. So it's an opportunity to really start to flex there too, is to think about that decision matrix.
Yep.
Is pro and con a activity record type on custom object?
We did it on an Excel sheet for the client to choose.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
I'm just kidding.
No, I know that's fine.
Yeah.
And we're in Salesforce. I'm using Excel.
I'm just surprised nobody's making fun of me for still not having a Ring doorbell. So
No,
yeah.
I don't have one. No. I have an old doorbell.
And I am very close to setting up cameras to cover my entire backyard because the taco cam needs to be expanded. He tends to go outside of this border, and I can't see what's going on when I'm in meetings.
It's like Monday Night Football went from ESPN to ESPN2 with the Manning brothers and ESPN Plus for sideline coverage. That's Taco Cam.
Yeah.
What perspective of Taco do you need? Here's all the additional platforms.
Yeah, I really just need to see the one where he's being a complete jerk along the fence line. That's all I really need, but here we are.
Yeah, Dale, what you want is the Ring doorbell to videotape me trying to set up my Ring doorbell.
Now, did you
Because-
use a cordless one, or were you trying to wire it into the existing?
Yeah, well, it's got both things, but there are still holes in the side of the house that my wife is telling me you need to fix those holes. It didn't work. It didn't work, and so it put it back in the box. She said,
Did you return it, or did you just put it away?
"No, it's and now it's lost. I don't know where it is. I put it somewhere. It's in a box somewhere in the basement."
So Daniel, sorry if that didn't help, and you're welcome.
Yeah,
to-
he just ran for it. He's not even paying attention anymore.
Forget these guys.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's entertaining. No, and I just think the solution for what we're doing is it's been, I don't want to I want to talk bad about my business, but we've had a lot of turnover,
Mhm.
and so I'm picking up the pieces of something, and tech debt is a lot to do with that. Whoa, my camera just, I'm blurred out now. But tech debt is a lot of that. And so I'm trying to get us over the hump and trying to bypass all these nobody knows the answer. So I said, well, here's an answer. Let's avoid all of these questions entirely. And we did, and we have, but there's still an issue of like the record types applied to page layout assignments. And then it's like, well, I did that, and I found out that there were a few things that we've actually locked down so people couldn't edit. So I'm still gonna have 2-page layouts. So there's just couldn't get rid of all of them.
But and when it comes to locking things, I mean, do you know why, or have you asked anybody why? Like, I mean,
Nobody
this-
knows. Nobody, like I've asked my admins, I have a admin in Israel, admin in France, and I'm North and South America, and we're all banging our heads on this. I don't know how this happened. And the developers that have implemented this thing thought this was the solution, I guess, at the time. And so, but it was 5 years ago,
right.
and nobody's ever come back to this. So I don't know.
So start, I mean, if you haven't already, start building an inventory of all these things that you're finding. Get an advocate, like if you have a director or a VP over you and your other admins, to say, hey, we got a lot of tech debt that we could actually really afford to potentially get rid of, and it will make things home a little bit easier. Do we have your support to pursue cleaning this up? And if they say yes, start
But-
making a list. And if you can't get an answer for anybody, sounds to me like the answer is we don't need it. And start simplifying, start
Yeah.
unwinding some things.
Most of the times the answer is just don't break anything.
Well, and
Sure, Daniel, just don't break anything. So
but I mean, you've
But, okay,
not been
but
doing this long enough
documenting-
though that you know
documenting
how
is
not
gonna
to
break.
break things.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
I love breaking stuff though. That's the other thing.
You go break stuff in a sandbox.
It's-
Or
Progression, not perfection.
Well, I tell you what, break
That's why you have
something-
holes in your house.
Tell you
Or
what,
Twitter.
breaking something is the best way to make sure someone can say they needed it or not, right? Sometimes you
Twitter.
ask and they're like, right, you're like, yeah, I need that report. If you delete it and they don't ask for it, they didn't need it.
Yeah, I need that bluebird social media mess in my life. No, I know.
Hey, Daniel, this is a great opportunity too to step outside the tech debt item, because one of the challenges I think many people have, especially when you've got multiple developers, is that whole idea of like, well, we made it read only or write or required on the page layout, but that's only the layout, right? And so you start asking questions like, you know what, you can't edit it on the page, but you can edit in the list view. Isn't that a problem? Like now you start to identify defects that need to be resolved too by asking that bigger question. This is a great exercise. It's just painful.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all called this out on previous calls. It's those kinds of things that if you take the initiative to start up, you are proving that you're ready for the next step. And if that's with your current employer, if that's with another employer, whatever, you are taking that initiative to grow even more.
yeah, my role here is solution architect. I'm an admin and BA.
Sounds like you're a solution
But I'm a
architect.
solution architect for these guys, and it's pretty fun, and I
Yeah.
enjoy it. So they're not asking me to solve all these, they're asking me to be an admin, and I'm doing that. But I'm really looking at stuff and getting curious. And when the new tools come out, when the new was it the table came out, I was just like, oh man, this just unlocks all the things we can do with flows and screen flows with this table now, and work that wasn't possible last year that we needed developers to do. I can build you a flow for that now. So now they're just like catching up to what Salesforce can do, and all the things I'm telling to them. And a lot of it is, that's fine, just keep your tickets down, then you can go off on these other side items. So
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, going back to, I'll argue myself on the whole don't necessarily jump into the shiny thing. The shiny things get a lot shinier and more fun when they don't have as many strings attached to them. So if you've gone through and cleaned out all the other stuff that you don't have to do, those new tools actually can become more powerful and effective, and you can really extend a lot further with those. So always keep that in mind too.
yeah, and luckily, and my favorite part about this company I work with is the full sandbox. Like I
Mhm.
really feel like I can play and then go back and fix it. so that full sandbox is just a godsend.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge.
Thanks. I appreciate all the input though.
Yeah.
No more questions. That's crazy.
Nothing else in the queue, so doors open. Wasn't there
Everyone
something you were
said everyone said that's a 2023 problem and walked away.
I thought there was something last time that we were gonna haul back to the next meeting when there was a lull. Does anybody remember what that was?
No,
Right.
no, I don't remember what that was because somehow.
So
We talked about validation rules. We talked about removing.
So, we have
Diane.
Diane with a question about default account teams.
Oh, Diane.
Ooh, I like those.
Really? I'm so happy.
But I don't
It
know if
sounds
it's gonna
like
be a
you're
good
not.
answer. Like I like them, but I wish they were easier to implement. But what's your
Oh,
question?
no, don't say that. Anyway, I've been using Salesforce for a very, very long time. But I've never used default account teams. You know how there's that one thing that you've never done as an admin, and all of a sudden someone's like, "Hey, what about this?" So we're moving to this kind of new structure in our customer success organization, and I want to be able to add a default account team. And I've got all that set up, and I think it's working great. The problem is that I don't know what happens when the account gets transferred. So if the account gets transferred manually, you have that option to delete the account teams, right? Beautiful. Going back to the earlier conversation, I use demand tools for account assignments. And I was just wondering if there was anyone else who used the tool to reassign accounts and whether or not they knew, and I could test this, I just haven't yet, whether or not those account teams would go away. Because that's my biggest problem is I don't want to end up with like 8 different account teams because I've transferred the account 8 different times.
You mean so that like the entire team, like everybody has access to the account? Can you just keep adding additional?
Well, honestly, the purpose of the account team is not for access. Everybody has access to all the accounts anyway. It's really just to show who the additional team members are in that we call them pods, so that someone could see who the owner is, but who else is part of that team. That's what we're using the account team for. And if the owner somehow, gets changed for whatever reason, I want to make sure the old team gets wiped out, before, because you have that option in adding default teams to automatically have it put in your default team if you get reassigned. And I'd like that to happen, but I don't want that old team still left in there.
So I don't know if I don't know your account hierarchy or account structure well enough to know if this would be scalable for you, but way back when I was an admin, our accounts, they were open to everybody, but just like you, we were using account teams to indicate who are the additional parties, because in the rail industry, you sell by market and by move, and market is what commodity are we actually hauling. So you could have oil, you could have petroleum, you could have carbon, you could have whatever, and there would be a different sales rep for each one. We were using the account hierarchy, and then we also had like a financial tool that had its own like corporate account name that then kind of was an umbrella over the whole account hierarchy. So I had integrated that in there. I developed a custom object two custom objects, actually. One of them was, what's my list of all my corporate account names from this external tool? And then hanging on that was a custom account team tool that is for ABC Corporation. These are the account team people. So that if any of those 001 account records, either the owner changed or they transferred, like acquisitions, all that kind of stuff, I had a flow that would essentially reset the account teams throughout that hierarchy, so that for ABC Corporation, which should have these 3 sales reps with role A, role B, role C, it would go through all of those accounts and just reconcile all the account team member records for those accounts to make sure that A, B, and C were applied throughout. I don't know if that's kind of what you're looking for, but it's only I as the admin have access to it, so that when my sales users break stuff, I still have like a backup copy of what I needed that I can easily re-implement.
Okay. Interesting. I never thought about doing a custom object. I kind of was hoping it might be just as simple as, add the default team.
Now, I'm also saying this I left my admin role 6 years ago, and a lot of things have evolved in the last 6 years on the platform. So maybe what you're trying to solve for does exist, and I just haven't had to implement it. But that was my workaround to resolve that.
If I'm not mistaken, and I was trying to find my notes from the last time we talked about this at work, but that modal that pops up when you change owner, that starts to ask, like, do you want to reassign? Do you want to clear the account team? Do you want to, I don't think anything else triggers those questions. I think it's actually that action specifically does that.
Yeah.
I can't find my
defaulted
notes.
to not be sales proof, that if they don't have to click anything extra, they won't, and that's what wipes it out.
Yeah. So I think if I understand what you're saying, Diane, you don't want to lose the team that's assigned.
No,
If-
I do want to use it.
You do want it, okay. And then have it, and then go back to Dale's thing, and then reassign a brand new team.
Based on the new owner's default team.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So, yep, Dale, I mean, that's,
Similar.
it's
Same
your
but different.
flow, except that you should have the default teams assigned to the users already. You just go look to that object instead of having this custom.
Mhm.
Like you had to, Dale, what you were describing, you almost had an owner default team, but it wasn't the owner, it was like a parent account default team,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, for this parent account, I need to make sure every single account record underneath has these 3 or 4 users with these roles specified throughout. Because this is also pre-Lightning, pre-console. You can only look at one account record at a time. So I needed that to be pervasively applied.
And so in your case, Diane, are they making a owner change from the button, but you don't want them to have to think about the checkboxes? Is that kind of what we're getting at?
No, if they normally when we change accounts, it's not a single account. It's usually because somebody left the business and we have to reassign all their accounts. So I use demand tools for all record reassignments, actually.
Right.
So I haven't tested it out. I didn't know. I think what you said is right, Squire, that those options you get presented when you click the change button icon don't show up anywhere else. And so I'm just guessing that if I'm using demand tools, it's not going to automatically reassign the account team. It may be something that I have to.
If I had to guess, demand tools would be no different than if you're trying to update via data loader or some other mechanism that is literally just targeting the owner field and that's it. It's the same mechanism of when you reassign an account owner in the UI, it'll then also reassign contacts and opportunities, but that doesn't happen through the API, through data loader, anything like that.
Well, you can do that in demand tools. You can,
Oh,
but
nice.
you manually have to say, I want it to update all the contacts, opportunities, tasks, events, etc. That's why I like using it, because I can go in and say, so we don't ever have any records that are assigned to inactive people. I like that. That's why I like using demand tools. But
I'm a little concerned. So like going back to Dale, what you were talking about, when you make a single change, being able to like run a flow, but depending on the number of changes and the number of members of account team, you might have to build some sort of system, like process to manually assign the teams after the user change. Because you might be making hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of updates to
No,
depending
it
on my
would
accounts.
like 20 or 30. This is, yeah.
Okay.
Scalable enough number. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always nervous about it's 20 today. Is it 200 next year? But
Right. It could
so,
be.
yeah.
We could buy a company and all of a sudden it's 200, you know,
Right. So, but I mean, I think from that perspective, then is it just a matter of, or I shouldn't say just, but Demand Tools makes the ownership change, but it doesn't touch the team assignment. So then you have to do some sort of close and re-update either through Flow or through a data model or a data loader. Is that where we're ending?
I would probably have to. Yeah, I'd have to pull the data out and then, yeah, I haven't thought about it yet. It's so new. Like I was just asked to do this yesterday, and so I haven't had much time to test some of those scenarios out. But I was like, oh, this is great. You know, it can just automatically assign the default team. And then I'm like, well, what happens if it changes? You know, I just don't want to end up with bad information on the account now. You know, we work so hard to clean up all of our data.
There's a screen flow built in there too. Like you could do something with a screen flow where I want to change accounts owned by this person. So ScreenFlow does the search and then you say, okay, here's my list. Who's the new owner? And then clear or don't clear the account teams. Like you could have a flow do all that. And then Demand Tools isn't as critical, but if you're doing reassignment of all the child records, that's a lot harder. So
I'm going to ask a stupid question. Where is default account teams?
It's on the user record. So like so I have instructions, you go into your avatar, go into settings, you go into advanced user detail, and then you scroll down to the bottom and there's a place to add the default team for opportunities and accounts. Keep scrolling. There it is. It's
I
pretty
haven't had to
simple.
implement this yet. Is it obvious?
No, I don't feel so bad for not knowing.
Okay. Nice.
In a past life, I used Process Builder to do the things
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
To
and
remove the default team.
to do both. So
Oh, okay.
instead of updating every user's default team, we had that particular scenario. They just needed to have like a group of people on every opportunity, like oversight and all that fun stuff. So they just added this giant opportunity team of people to every opportunity.
Hmm.
So
It may not even, I don't know. I'll have to think about it some more, because even if the account owner changed, it may still have the same team assigned. So it may not be as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be. I'm just trying to think of, you know, it's like you said, what could or could not happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I do this. I just don't want to find out 4 months from now that I've got, you know, a load of accounts that have 2 sets of team members, because that would be bad.
Yeah.
Then people wouldn't know which ones to look at, to go to, you know, so, okay. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Keep us posted.
Yeah.
Quick time check. We got 6 minutes and we had Andrew on the list. Are we gonna be able to get to it?
what was list views, right, Andrew?
A question about list
Yeah.
view.
It'll be really fun. I promise.
Sweet.
Okay.
Oh, I feel like this is a setup, Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. It might be. By the way, quick show of hands. Who's going to be at World Tour? So I don't think that got like asked. But next
That's from,
week,
like, 6 days
anybody?
of work.
I'm gonna be not going
Okay.
to the airport, not staying at a hotel. I'm gonna be sleeping in my bed.
Looks like I'm alone there. Great. Okay. So actual question. Does anyone have any creative ways to get a list view of records that the current viewer of the list view is either the owner of or is in the queue that is the owner? So either the owner of the record or is a member of the queue that owns the record in a list view though.
So you're commingling queue ownership and user ownership. Is that the ask?
Ideally so that they can go to one list view to be able to see work that they either own and need to do or work that they the queue owns that they could pick up to do, which, yeah, I already know this is like a probably unlikely,
How
but
many records are on this object?
lots, hundred thousands, probably large data, less than 1 million, above 30,000 after about a month.
Why?
It's a task, so TaskRay. If anyone knows TaskRay app exchange app, we're going live January 1st. Oh, that was a face palm. That's not good.
Well,
It's
but-
a
Go ahead.
well, it's like a task. So it's like not a custom task object, but it's a custom task object, and either it's owned by them or owned by the queue. It's an app exchange app. I didn't
Oh
make a
yeah,
custom
very familiar
task.
with TaskRay. It's why are we going straight to list view versus something like a report or some other mechanism if we need to
Dashboard.
commingle work responsibilities like that?
I mean, if a report would work, but ideally it's so that I can put it in the utility bar so that they can have work that they could pull from. So almost, like if you go to like a list view and you're looking at the queues to pull work out of. So we have groups like the accounting group or other project management groups that need to just pull work to work on.
So from a process standpoint, is there any higher or lower priority or level of
Whatever the
maturity
due
between
date.
records that are owned by a queue versus owned by a user?
Whatever the due date is. So whatever needs to get done first is the higher priority.
So
And that was the problem of like, if it's just one list view, I know for a fact people aren't going to go check the other one. So there's just no one does it. And my thing does not work. There's also a scoping you can do in a SQL query that's mine or my groups is like a scoping thing you can do with a SQL query if I built a custom list view. That doesn't work for anything other than approval, like one of the approval objects.
What about a scoping rule with the standard scoping rule to be able to show mine or membership without having to write SQL? It's awesome.
It doesn't have, I don't think that it has, I don't think scoping rules have what's it called? Have the ability to do queues with it.
Can you make
but
the object private? If you make
But
the
the
object
user's supposed-
private, if the object's private and you only have access to the stuff that you own or that you are in a member of a queue, and then it's just show me all the records.
show all, yeah.
Problem is that when
Go
the accounting needs
snippet.
to look at a project, they need to see all the stuff on the project so they can understand what the project. So if you hide half the project,
Well, but so then why isn't
But that's a
accounting
different
given a
user.
higher role in the hierarchy to open up that exposure? Like, I
Right,
think
like
there,
that's a
so I
different
mean,
user,
there's
right?
a number of different questions that I think need to be answered that maybe may have the answers in them before you try to go down a potentially custom route. From a process standpoint, am wondering why we have some things going to a queue versus some going straight to a user owner when the priority is hit a date. Like, what does that owner field represent? Like, if it's a queue that's waiting for somebody to be picked up, where's the missing step of getting that queue assigned to a user that, yeah, sorry, you might have two list views, but something owned by a queue versus something owned by a user was intended to have two very different meanings when you're in objects and processes that allow queue ownership. Queue means it's waiting for somebody to be picked up. User means it's been picked up. So maybe solve for that. Totally get it that accounting or some other like back office function needs to be able to see all the things, but love the thought of private sharing and then you access all. So why is accounting not higher up in the role hierarchy? Role hierarchy shouldn't necessarily reflect HR hierarchy. It's see how much
it's
of
security. The only problem is that the accounting literally on a given project has about 4 of these tasks that are there, and there's about 50 other ones. So they are going to get 4 of the 50 others. So if they have the view of all the 50 others, they only are going to care about 4. So then that makes the whole, what they view if they
Can
had
you just
view of
assign
it.
these records with omnichannel and not worry about just going through the things. It's like if you can't
actually a
use
good
a
question.
simple way of doing
Yeah.
it, pass the records out with omnichannel and forget about all of it. Just decide what your workload is and be like, all right, cool.
That's
There's your work. Go do that. Quit checking queues. Forget all that crap.
Yeah, that's the way
Good
we do
job.
it too. We just, you see your queue. There is another queue over here, but you just have a button that says, give me my next tasks.
Yep.
You hit that button, it gives you your next 4 tasks. You don't care about the other 50 tasks in the queue. They
Yeah.
just sit there. You just keep hitting your button. As long as
Yeah.
you finish your 4 tasks, hit your button. You finish your next
Yeah.
4 tasks, hit your button. You're just an
See-
automaton. You're automaton. You're an automaton.
Monetized?
You're a monoton.
Monetized
You're,
automaton.
you're an automaton. You're just hitting the button and doing your tasks like a robot. And that's what you are. So I would forget about the queue. Just think about what does the people need to do to get their tasks done.
Mhm.
I'm all for, okay, that actually solves that. I'll use omnichannel powered by Genie
I,
in real
I-
time.
I think the answer to the question is sharing, right? Like fix the problem at the sharing level. The answer to the how should you actually do it is omnichannel. Don't use a list view.
Omnichannel it is.
And with that, we are at time. We're at 2:00.
Can I say something to Diane real quick?
Yeah, you can
This is
say
Todd.
hi, but that's all, Todd.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, Diane, this is Todd Basham. We use account and opportunity default teams extensively. I just ran a test during the last couple conversations, and I used Developer Console to change an owner on an account. It wipes out the team and puts the default in.
Really?
So if
Sounds
your
like some testing,
if
Diane.
your tool is working the same,
exciting.
going through the API, I think it might work the same for you. But be sure and test it in your org.
Okay.
I thought
Thank
that's the way it
Look at
worked,
that.
but I
Half
wanted
your
to
holiday
verify it.
shopping's done, Diane.
I
Thank
think Todd
you.
wins. Todd wins this week.
Hey, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll help you where I can.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Todd.
post up in the community group. We'll talk to everybody in 2 weeks. 2
Woo.
weeks. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks,
Hi,
everyone.
everybody.
Stay warm. Oh man, that was a good one.